Hjertelig velkommen til et nytt program her på Israelkanalen. I dag så er jeg så heldig å ha med meg doktor Yigal Ben Shalom. Han leder en av de organisasjonene vi støtter i Israel. Heartily welcome to the program, Yigal.
I'm the president of the Jemenite community in Israel, which is the most ancient community since 620 before centennial.
So what happened at that time when you established that community in Yemen?
Yeah, what happened is that when Jeremias, the prophet, told Jerusalem, Judea and Benjamin and the Levi tribes that because of their sins, Nebuchadnezzar will come and destroy Jerusalem. They believed Jeremias. They didn't wait until the destruction. So before the first temple destruction, which happened at 586 BC, they left Jerusalem and went all the way down to south of Arabia. And then they started the Jewish life. And those days, there were pagans, all of them. It was before Muslims.
Yeah.
And they went there. And our tradition says that even before that, there were merchants of Sheba Queen with the Shlomo. So there were some merchants that were already there because they stayed there. So what happened, they kept the Torah, they kept the Bible, they kept everything, and they convinced part of the pagans to convert into Judaism. So at 200 AC, there were a Jewish kingdom in Yemen for 300 years. Yeah, there was a king in Yemen.
That I didn't know about, actually.
I know. Every time that you come, I have to tell you something that you don't know about our history. So we have a research institution. So what happened in this kingdom? We have evidence for that. How do we know? Because part of the nobles, part of the princes in this kingdom wanted themselves to be buried in Israel. So we have in Israel, in Bet She'arim, in the north, the Israeli caves, and we have their addresses that say that here is buried one of the leaders of the Yemenite Jewish in Himyar. Himyar was the name of Yemen. And we have they are buried here, okay, so we know. Then the Muslim came at the 7th century, and they oppressed and depressed the Judeans. They told them, either you convert into Muslim or we'll kill you. So they became a second-degree citizen, Dhimma,
Yes.
you know that.
Yeah.
And in spite of all this, they have developed a rich culture and a rich habits according to the Bible. So the reason that we are the tribe, we are the community that are the most authentic community from the Bible, because the Yemenite community, the Jewish Yemenite community, were isolated from the rest of the world. So what they knew what have written in the Bible. So our community read in the Bible in different way of our brothers from Ashkenazi or Sephardis, because our pronunciation is like in the Bible, like the Leviticus in the temple. So there are connections between the sagas, the wisdom people in Babel and Yemen. And the people of Yemen contributed money to the Bible. Then came the Maimonides. Maimonides adored and thought that the Yemenite Jewish are the most authentic Yemenite, and they are very, very scholared and know the Talmud, and they know everything about the Bible. So at the 12th century and the 13th century, he wrote letters to the Jewish of Yemen, and he told them how much he adored them, how much he admired their way of living, and encouraged them to keep their manners, because they became some people who told them that it's a time to leave Yemen, to go to the Holy Land, and it was a force, of course. The community continued to enhance in Yemen and to keep the tradition. Then what happened in the 17th century, there was the king of Yemen, Imam, asked them either to convert into Muslim or to kill them all. And there was the great leader. It's called Rabbi Shalom Shabazi. Shabazi was a great leader and also a great poet. He wrote 900 songs about Israel, about God, about the oppression. And he convinced, and also the Muslim admired him because he was like a
strong leader.
Right, top leader. Yeah. So he told the Imam, you shouldn't kill the Jews because something happened to you if you do that. So they exiled them. They went to a desert, and all the Jews, they mixed. They took Jewish people from the capital, like Sana'a, and put them in the desert, and other Jewish from Damar, from other countryside, and put them in the desert. And 50% of the Jewish people passed away in this exile. 50%. And also they burned the Torah, they burned the books, they burned the manuscripts of them. Then after 1.5 years, the head of the tribes told the Imam, the king, we need the Jewish come back because they were the professionals. They were the silversmith, they were the people who make their weapons, they were the farmers, whatever, they needed them. Mm-hmm. So they came back, but not to the same places, the original places. They were burned their synagogues, they were burned their houses, and they started to build again the community. Then at the 19th century, 1881, 1882, it's 140 years exactly this year. All the time they thought about Israel. They knew that they want to go to Zion. They didn't buy houses, whatever. They knew that they will come back to Israel someday. And then at 1881, they have heard about some new king of Judaism, Rothschild. Yeah, that he buys lands in Israel and you can come and they build your houses. And it was 140 years ago. And hundreds of people, hundreds of Jewish from Yemen, left their houses, left everything, and walked by their feet all the way down, weeks after weeks and months after what, down to Aden. Aden was it was the port that from there they could come by ship to Israel. So they came here and started to. They wanted to go to Jerusalem, but in Jerusalem there were a minority of Jewish people and majority of Muslim people. So the minority of the Jewish people were divided into people who came from Europe, Ashkenazi, and people who came from Spain, Sephardi. And they lived according to contribution donations from the exile, from the diaspora, and they didn't want to give the money to the new coming Jewish people. And they were weird, they were with the payas, they were with the beard, they were a little bit brown skin. They say, you are not part of us. So the Jewish from Yemen went and lived in caves around Jerusalem. Wow. Caves, it's in a village called Silwan. Silwan is near Jerusalem. Yeah. They lived in caves there.
Down there in the Kidron Valley and Silwan?
In the valley. Yeah. And they started to make their living there in the caves because they couldn't live in Jerusalem. And until there were riots of the Arabs, and they killed, in 1929 and 1936. During the Mandat, during the British, where the regime was here, and they let the Arabs kill the Jews. So they killed some of the Jews in this Silwan, and they left the village and came back to Jerusalem.
So at that time, the first wave with the Jemenite Jews that came from Yemen back to Israel started in 1880s.
Yeah.
And then, but then they were pressed down by the other Jewish brothers?
To my sorrow, because it's a shame to say so, but they brought the Jewish from Yemen for a purpose. They say that the Arabs were working here for the farmers who came from Europe, Jewish farmers. The Arabs were the worker, employees, and they say if they will bring the Jewish from Yemen, they can replace the Arabs for the black work, you know?
Wow.
That's what they thought. And that was the start. So they suffered also here, and they didn't give them land. But the Yemenite, the Jewish from India, they were a strong soul, a strong belief. They say, we come to Israel, this is our land. So they came here, they suffered here, they suffered from malaria. Many were passed away because of that. And then they started to build their own communities, and they built. And then the chief rabbi of Israel, Rabbi Cook, he asked them question about Bible, about Talmud, and said that they are very, very clever, and they know everything, and they are very scholarly, and keep all the mitzvot, all the commandments, whatever. And so he wrote a letter to everybody. Well, these are our brothers. They know more than us.
Yeah.
We're better one Jew from Yemen than secular pioneer from Europe. So then they started to make the community and to be recognized by the other Jewish in Israel. So all of the Jewish of Yemen came, most of them came on 1949, 1950. They came on the eagle's wing. They say, you know, they didn't know what is a plane.
Yeah.
They didn't know. So when they saw the plane in Aden, you know, they came from all over the mountains of Yemen. You know, thousands of people with men, women, children, with nothing on themselves. And I could say that when they saw the planes, they said, okay, this is what is written in the Bible. I will bring you on the eagle wings to Israel. They said, okay, that's what Isaiah said, that was in the Torah. To tell the truth, they brought with them many manuscripts and jewelers, you know, they are jewelers. And also the pilots and also the waitress, the air waitress, told them that it's too heavy to carry on the plane. Wow. So they must took it away and put it down. And they believed them. So they left their jewelers and manuscripts there, and we don't know where it is. Now, after many years, we found this manuscript in many museums and archives all over the world because they were sold by the other people. So they suffered. But when they came to Israel, 60,000 of them came to Israel. They left 3,000 left in Yemen. They came to Israel and they decided at the first years of 1950, they decided to survive. They put them, you know, there were more than 1.5 million. So they put them in tents, you know, in the winter, in the snow tents. And I'm sorry to say that around 2,000 children of our families disappeared because they took them like to the hospital. They say, well, they need the hospitalized, they need cure, they are very weak, they are starving, and then they disappeared because they gave them to some families to be adopted by them. What they say? So
they stole the kids from their original parents and gave it away?
Yeah.
Wow.
I tell you why. Because they say you have many children, you know, you have 6, 7, 8 children, but there are families who are a Holocaust survivor without children, so they gave it to them, and the parents didn't know. Until now, we don't know what happened to these children. This is also a tragedy of our community, but we are very strong, so we continue.
But this conflict that you had, how have you solved this? Because if you are living together and you have a kind of a dark history behind you, how can you reconcile with the situation?
This we have to thank my late father. My late father, Yigal Ben Shalom, he came from Yemen when he was 7 years old, 1930, and he was integrated in Israel. Then he came into an insight, he understood that he must be the bridge between the Yemenite community and the other communities of Israel, and he did it by his own way, and I continue his way. He passed away 17 years ago. I was Director General of the whole Social Security of Israel, and I also was integrated and grew up in this country, and I have my PhD, so I grew. So he has decided to establish this association, Association for Society and Culture in Israel. He named it Society for Culture in Israel, not Yemenite society. He said, we are a society of all Jews in this country, and our mission is to show the culture of our community. So all of a sudden, all the other Jews in Israel, European and Sephardi, saw that we will have poets, and we will have a history, and we have had a lot of preparators of the Bible, of Talmud. We were creators, we were great rabbis in Yemen, and our mission is to show it to the rest of the Jewish here and to the rest of the world. And all of a sudden, so all these, let's say, primitive Yemen who came from nowhere, from the parents, are scholars and they have history. And that's our way to bridge. Now, everybody knows and admire and recognize and see our community, which is a community that contributes to the Israeli culture. We have the best singers, and in my community, I am the president of the whole Yemenite community in Israel. We have more than 200,000 people. And then I support also new immigrants that still came from Yemen the last decade, because 3,000 of them didn't want to come to Israel. They didn't believe that it's really a new country, and they've heard that there are wars here, the Arab, 7 countries that attacked one little country like Israel. They didn't believe, and they suffered another 50 years there. So I support them to come to Israel and manage them and give them work and support their clothes and their children and everything for the coming Pesach. We give them a lot of food and everything. So I succeeded. My late father, because I make the bridge between my public responsibility as Director General of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs and the son of a Yemenite leader. So I continue and lead the Yemenite community and believe that now we are integrated. I give money I give scholarships to students who their parents come from Yemen to study, to be doctors and masters and engineers, whatever. So that's the way. My way is to cause our community to be a community that contributes to the Israeli culture. And that's what happens. That's our association doing. All weekdays and weekends, for example, you were our guest in a weekend in Jerusalem, which is in Shabbat. In Shabbat, it was. How you impressed about it? It's full of energy, of spiritual energy about our belief. We believe in Almighty, and most of us are religious, except the grandchildren, they go to school, to secular school, so sometimes they don't remain religious. So I could say that our community now are very satisfied that we are in Israel, but I support the community, the Yemenite community, and everybody knows that 2,600 years ago, people came from Jerusalem to Yemen, and they were very strictly religious, and they believed in the Bible, and all the time all the dreams were about Zion, all their songs about Zion. In Shabbat, after the Shabbat, they pray and they have a special song that will come to Zion again. So in the community now, the Yemenite people established here around 100 communities like Moshavim and Kibbutzim and the neighborhoods in Israel, They were not only farmers, they were also owners of land. So this is very successful absorption after we suffered so much 2,600 years and another 50 years here.
Yeah, exciting to hear that. When you look at the Jemenite community in Israel, do they live, like separate and from the others, or is it mingling together, intermarriage, and these kind of things that normally happen in a society?
I would split it into two periods. Two eras. From the 1950 until 1970, they were separated. In communities, like in different cities in Israel, like in Netanya, there were a community where I was born. In Beersheba, in Jerusalem, separate communities, and then they started to be integrated in other communities, and the intermarriage also. It's something amazing, When first they came to Israel, they were very beautiful women, the Yemen women. So they were enjoyed very, not too many from Yekes, from people who came from Germany to Israel, and they were married together. And now I would say that my grandchildren already, they don't know if they are Yemenite or not. They are Israeli, because I have 5 children, so some of them are married to Yemenite women, or some of them are to non-Yemenite women. So you can see the integration here in Israel. It's very, very important, this integration. But I insist to keep our tradition of reading the Torah and keep our rules as it was in the Bible. I think it's important. So although there are intermarriage, we try to keep our tradition, because I think this is the most authentic tradition from the Bible through the diaspora to Israel. So now we live, I live in a community with many others, not Yemenite community here, and we are praying together. I go to Sephardic and Ashkenazi synagogue, I have my own synagogue, but we are totally try to live together in peace, and we love each other.
That's wonderful. Anne Marie Gravdahls, who initiated the work of Israelkanalen at Visjon Norge, she had a very pounding heart for the Jemenite Jews, and she actually went to Yemen as well. So she started to support your organization, and I have tried to live up to her work, and still support you. What is the specific needs that you actually want to meet?
First of all, I'm excited to speak about Anne Marie. Anne Marie, we loved her so much. My father was her best friend, and she loved our family. And every Friday night when she comes here, she was our guest, and she knows my children, my grandchildren. She was her personality was outstanding personality. We love her, and we miss her a lot. And she started to support the Yemenite. Nobody knew about there is Yemenite community in Israel. She knew their support. So our community, what you really need, it's basic needs. I must tell you, if I tell you about computers for the children, it's something that above the needs. I mean, something that they don't even dream about it. They need clothes for the holidays. They need shoes. They need food basket for the holidays. And everything is very, very expensive here. And most of them, when they came here, they are not professionals. They don't have work to do. So they are supported by the Social Security donations, and so they need basic support. And the most important, I'm trying to make the second generation or third generation not to suffer. So I'm trying to bring them education, to bring them the ability to have a profession so they could go work. I don't want second generation of poverty or third generation of poverty. So I support them in the basic needs, clothes, shoes, books for the schools, and try to educate them, to give them support by teachers, that they give them private lessons so they can catch up in the school with their friends. So that's the way that we support them now. and I would like to thank you and the Norwegian people, Norwegian donors that enable me and enable our association to support all these hundreds of families that we support them.
Yeah, I'm glad that we are still able to help you with this, and it's also good to know you and after all these years that we have been working with Israelkanalen and in Israel especially. The museum that you have in Netanya, is it open for the public?
Yeah, we have a museum in Netanya. This museum that was founded by my late father, and I continue it, is open to the public. You can visit every day except Shabbat and except Friday, from Sunday to Thursday, and you can study about the Yemenite culture, Yemenite history, Yemenite books, Yemenite jewelry, Yemenite silversmith, Yemenite way of we studied. I mean, for example, there were not books in Yemen, so maybe one book, also manuscripts, not printed book, and there were 8 children around one table on the floor with one teacher. He taught them. So that's the reason that the Yemenite children can read, from all sides of a book. You can test them. I can read from up, down, down, up, bottom up, whatever, because there was one book only. So you can see it in our center in Netanya, in our museum. It's in the center of Netanya. You've been there. And everybody is invited and very welcome to come to be with us and study about the Yemenite community, which is the most ancient community in Israel.
Well, thank you very much, Yigal, for this information that you have shared with us. And thank you very much for your participation in this program.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased that your family, like Anne Marie, thank you for the support. And other colleagues from Norway are mostly welcome to Israel. After the corona, I hope that you will come with groups and they will welcome you here. And thank you very much for this interview, and say hello to all our colleagues and friends in Norway.
Thank you. Ja, det var altså det vi hadde for denne gangen. Tusen hjertelig takk for at dere har fulgt oss med på denne sendingen. Og skal du til Netanya på besøk i Israel, så ta gjerne en tur innom dette senteret som Yigal Ben Shalom har åpnet der for de jemenittiske jødene. Tusen takk for denne gangen. Takk for meg.